Hey y'all, it's Sunday morning in the workshop. Just got up. I don't have my watch on. It's about 9 o'clock, and I want to do something today. I don't know if you can hear it, but the vacuum cleaner's running upstairs. See, I really ought to get this insulation done. That would help me too. That's not what I'm going to do though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to address this nonsense right here. This little bin has been my cutoff bin for years and years and years, and it's completely too small and unorganized, and I hate it. I can't get myself to throw away even the smallest piece of hardwood because I always find a use for it. I find some small project to do. So I'd really like to get that organized. That's going to be today's mission. So as you can see, I got them all sorted into piles, and I'm sitting here staring at things and thinking, man, how am I going to do this? I want something that's nice and easy access right next to the miter saw station. And I realized, yeah, I got to build that French cleat system. It's time to start, because I can build some pretty cool little holders for various sizes of cutoffs that I can slide onto a French cleat. So I'm headed to Lowe's. I'm going to use 3/4 inch pine for the cleats. It's pretty economical and it's easy to work with. And a couple of sheets of plywood to build the fixtures out of. So starting with the cutoff holder, I've got this piece of 2 foot by 4 foot plywood that I need to break down. So I gotta say, don't do what I'm doing here. I should be using a crosscut sled. This is a real good way to get kickback. I mean, I'm putting more pressure on the material that's to the right of the blade, and I'm pushing from that side and only supporting it on the left, but nonetheless, this is not a good practice. I should use the crosscut sled. I want to talk for a minute about one of the most useful tools in my shop, SketchUp. I use it constantly. I'll start with a 3D model like what you see on the left, and then I'll pull measurements off of that and create a second model, basically of a piece of plywood. And then I can rearrange those pieces on that virtual plywood until I've got the exact cut plan that I need that doesn't waste more plywood than I need to. Another nice thing about SketchUp is I designed this model with a 15-degree slope on the front, and without me having to do any math, it just told me what those measurements are, and so I'm just measuring them out, and then I'll connect the line, and I'll set my miter gauge to 15 degrees, and it'll be right. I didn't subject you guys to it, but what you missed there was me hitting my outfeed table with the miter gauge. It's an issue that I've had for a long time, and I just haven't cut a notch into that outfeed table. I don't know why I don't do it. Maybe I'll get around to it now that I've shown it on this video. So I'm going to set the miter gauge back to 90 degrees, but I'm going to put the edge that we just cut at 15 degrees against the fence. That's going to give me a 90-degree angle in reference to the front of the storage container. It makes more sense in the SketchUp diagram here. So I wouldn't have any idea how to do all of this without that diagram. I live and breathe from my SketchUp designs. These last couple of cuts I need to make require me to set the blade at a 15-degree bevel. So I have to take out my zero clearance insert and risk a little bit of tear out on the plywood. I mean, it's not really that important. It is a shop fixture, but I like to treat everything with as much care as I can because it's practice. Now, even though I trust my measurements implicitly because of the SketchUp model, I still, if you've got a piece that's going to marry up to something that you need to cut, and that piece is already in its final dimension, use it. I mean, I would imagine that if I measured this afterwards, it would match my SketchUp measurements perfectly, but I'm going to use the actual real life here as opposed to the virtual model that I built. I'm real happy with that plywood blade on my table saw. Even the cuts with the that I wasn't able to use the zero clearance fence came out really nice. So I'm just knocking down these edges and we'll get to assembling. I love these corner clamps for jobs like this. It just keeps everything in perfect alignment. Everything's perfectly square while you get the clamps on it. So I know that I could be putting this together probably a little faster than I am. Instead of gluing one piece at a time, I could have gotten a pin nailer and just done the whole glue up in one sitting. I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons why I'm doing it this way is because it just kind of fits my lifestyle to do small little bits of work and then go back to doing something else. So that's part of it. And also, this is just, it's more foolproof. You don't get tear out from a pin that you had slightly angled wrong, and I don't know, it suits me and it'll come out well. Now turning my attention to the French cleat wall, I'm going to have to rip these pine boards down the center to get 2 cleats out of each one, and we'll get to sanding and cleaning them up. And if I'm going to spend the next hour or two sanding, I'm going to put some tunes on. Sorry guys, I don't think you can listen to this. For almost all my shop fixtures, I just like to use boiled linseed oil. It's super easy to apply, it affords a nice level of protection. I even like the way it looks. Some people don't. I like the amber hue that it gives. Since I built these walls, I know that those studs are 16-inch centers, so I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill and get these things ready to hang. So I don't know how this happened, but the outlets on this wall, they're not level. I don't know if you noticed, but I sure did. Eventually I'll run these cleats across the entire length of this wall, but I'm starting here and I'll start building some fixtures and moving my tools over onto this portion of the wall, and then I'll continue building. This is going to be a long process. And of course, sanding. You wouldn't believe how much sanding does not make it into these videos, but I mean, you have to understand this is where you put a lot of your time, or at least I do, because I like to, even my shop fixtures, I like to have that finished smooth feel. I'm only using 120 grit here, and I'll knock down the edges with a sanding sponge, and then we'll move on to get some finish on here. I'm sure most of you noticed that I sanded through the veneer on one side of this, and that's unfortunate. I just didn't have good alignment when I glued it up, and so the plywood was proud from the edges, and when I sanded it, I lost some veneer. Thankfully though, that was on the side that would face away from anybody walking into the shop. So if I really do care as much as I guess I do about how things look, at least it's not front and center. Here we go. I just need to make a whole bunch more of them in different lengths to accommodate the different lengths of scraps that I've got. But I wanted to make just this one and kind of get a feel for the design, and then I'll go into more of a mass production mode, probably off camera as well.